DanaRadio.com, and you can also find me on Twitter at DLash, where I've been a busy bee this morning. Well, I took exception to a piece that I read at a website called AmericanThinker.com. And I'll just share with you the headline for this, because as you know, I visited the border to I wanted to get a firsthand account of actually what was happening there. And as I've told you all earlier, what you see on television cameras has been sanitized by the government because they don't want you to see the real story. So this particular story that ran over at theamericanthinker.com by M. Catherine Evans, the headline was this: Americans protest illegals as high-profile conservatives pander. Now, those high-profile conservatives included Senator Ted Cruz, who you just heard, Congressman Louis Gohmert, Glenn Beck, one of my bosses, and myself, because we were in McAllen, Texas, visiting with a number of different individuals. But this article particularly focused on the one that I mentioned to you before, where we don't see eye to eye on Amnesty Catholic Charities. And I actually had some tense words with one of the volunteers there, and we just sort of left it at that. Joining me, I wanted to reach out, and I was, absolutely I was angry. And I think, that I had a right to be. And so I asked for Thomas Lifson, the publisher of American Thinker, to come on air and talk about this a little bit, and he has generously agreed to do so. Thomas, good afternoon to you.
Hello, Dana. I hope you've calmed down.
Well, well, please don't tell me you're hoping to get it started just like that. That's not.
Well, you've called me a liar, and you called us a crap bag in the first hour of your show. That's pretty intemperate.
I did. And it's pretty accurate. The truth isn't mean; it's truth. Now, I'm all about having a civil discourse at this point, but yes, I was angry, and I think that if we are to talk about courtesy, we could start. Yes, I actually do.
Is that discourse?
Is it civil discourse to say that I pandered and to essentially say that because I was a liberal, I can never embrace conservatism?
That wasn't what was
to
said.
accuse me of aiding lawbreakers?
That you were a liberal. You've put words in our mouth on Twitter.
You know what?
You put
No, I'm not. I'm calling
mouth.
you out on your suggestion. Now, look,
Pardon?
I attempted, Thomas, before we begin here, which I think we already have, I want it to be known for the record, I brought you on air not to have a shouting match with you, but to actually have a genuine discussion. I had my shout match with you on Twitter. I wanted to bring you on here to have a genuine discussion. If you want to do that,
let's do
let
that.
me know.
But I do take offense at being called a crap.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You know what? I do take offense with essentially being accused of aiding lawbreakers. Now, before we begin, let me ask you this question, because I'm trying to figure out if we have common ground or if you are actually just completely not getting where I'm coming from. Who do you think is behind the border crisis? Who do you think caused this?
Well, I agree with you that the Obama executive order or whatever it was in 2012 threw open the doors. I listened to your show for the first time, all 3 hours today, and I would say we agree on about 98% of the issues.
Okay. Now, where do you disagree with me at?
Well, number one, you've misconstrued the nature of our site. You kept saying the American Thinker says. This article and our articles are not the product of an editorial board that takes an official position of the publication. As we state in our About Us, which you can click on the masthead of our site, we present a variety of views, and we take delight in presenting, when possible, opposing views. We try to reflect the opinions within the conservative community. And you have to acknowledge that there are a lot of conservatives that are very, very upset about what they see as encouraging more illegal immigration by going to provide services to these people.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that part in a minute, because I think that's a two-parter. But the first part about the op-ed on this site, I still think that you have an obligation as a website, if what you're doing is what you say is practicing journalism. I do think that you have an obligation, even if you're running an op-ed. And I studied print journalism, and that's what I did before I got into broadcasting. I still think that you do have an obligation as the publisher and in some aspects in charge of editorial on that site to do your due diligence and at least reach out. Because the way that the article reads, you focus on Catholic Charities and Sister Norma Pimentel. Now, granted, Sister Norma Pimentel and I do not agree on amnesty. She's full on open borders, and we disagree on that. And I actually had words with one of the volunteers there. They did not like the fact that I used the term illegal immigrant, but like I said, the truth doesn't mean it's the truth. That is the accurate legal description. But there were other groups that we visited with who actually were not open borders and who were not pro-amnesty. And I just don't understand why it was the focus on that one group, and why no one reached out to ask, with whom all did we speak? Because obviously the photos that I posted showed that we visited way more than just Sacred Heart.
Well, that's, I have to ask you, do you have on your show everybody that you criticize?
Yes, I will extend an invitation.
Everybody?
Absolutely. I've had on Piers Morgan. I've had on Bill Maher. I've had on Claire McCaskill. Absolutely.
Do you make a point?
Not everyone accepts. Not
do you
everyone
make a point of reaching out to people and having them on your show to rebut you as before you criticize them?
Well, wait, are you asking me that in an ironic fashion that you did not reach out to me?
I want to know
article?
Because, first of all, op-ed journalism doesn't work that way. If you're writing a news story, yes,
you have
reach
an
out
obligation
to people
to be accurate
in your article, but this is an op-ed
even if it's an opinion, it still
you.
has to be accurate, Thomas, though. That's the thing.
Yes, what wasn't
you
accurate?
Don't get to lie
name me one
in
thing
an
that
op-ed.
wasn't accurate.
The fact that I was essentially aiding lawbreakers, and you compared me with Nancy Pelosi.
We didn't say you were aiding lawbreakers. You're using this, and you did this on Twitter again. You're essentially saying you've got to stick with what we did say, not what you think we said.
Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quote you. You wrote, quote, partnering with righteousness with law.
I didn't write. This was the author whose name is M. Catherine
You published
Evans.
it. You own it.
Yes,
you
I
can't
published
say
it,
that.
and
it
I
falls
will
under
own it.
your masthead.
But
there we are.
Please be accurate. As I said, we publish
I'm quoting
a variety
you. I'm not being inaccurate. You wrote, quote, partnering righteousness with lawlessness. Then you write, Lash's comparison of helping lawbreakers at borders. I was giving examples of a number of charities. I'm trying to ascertain in what manner am I assisting a lawbreaker, Thomas?